policy only put labour in the name to trick the workers. It's good to see a lot of workers starting to wake up and realise this. And if this truly was a democracy, mein Starmer, instead of plugging your ears, surely you should be listening to what the people have to say.
Save our kids! 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 Save our kids!
Just to point out, not only are there black people in the crowds, but there's also an Israeli flag flying next to an England flag. Are the far right fond of the Jews now, Starmer? And of course, Mr. Starmer doesn't want to save the kids because he's part of the problem. Don't forget Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. It was under your watch, Mr. Starmer, that Crown Prosecution Services let the man loose. Yes, the nonsense of the BBC and the lamestream media who covered for Savile in the first place are now trying to protect you so as to protect themselves, but the man in charge is the man responsible, isn't he, Starmer? And the government, the state, and the criminal justification system in charge also takes responsibility, doesn't it, Starmer? And Starmer, riddle me this. The police ruled out terrorism within an hour or two of the attack on Southport. And since you can only rule something out if you know what the true motivation is, that means Misery Side Police knew within a few hours of the attack who this person was and why he did what he did. They then refused to say anything of any substance and falsely labelled everyone far right for questioning them, resulting in a backlash that was targeted at a certain religious minority. They then brutally suppressed the riots more so than they've done with other riots, like at Leeds. And I'm actually on the side of the Leeds rioters, just to be clear, because I'm actually against socialist services. But this deliberate hiding of the facts by the authorities led to a further heightening of tensions, as did the false accusation that the EDL even exists, which it doesn't. It was disbanded a decade ago. Only 3 days later, after the first two riots, did they finally reveal who the murderer was. And my question is, had the government told us that he was a Christian in the first 24 hours, would the attack on the Southport Mosque have ever happened? Had we the people known he was a Christian, as you well knew, then the mosque may never have been attacked. And thus, mein Starmer, you and the UK government are responsible for the current backlash. At Southport, this man came brandishing a flick knife to the vigil to do even more harm to my hometown as it was mourning the loss of our children. As Misery Side Police reported, a 32-year-old man from Standish was arrested on suspicion of possession of a bladed article and taken into custody. Why was this man in my hometown in the first place, Starmer? What was his agenda, Starmer? This was before the Southport riot, Starmer. So why haven't we heard much about this man since, Starmer? Do you think the deliberate downplaying of this event by the police and lamestream media may have contributed to the feeling that you're trying to cover everything up, Starmer? Here is the mosque that was attacked during the Battle of Southport, and I'll point out that this battle was ultimately won by the people. 6 arrests and 50-odd police officers hurt says that the Scousers got the upper hand, even if they didn't reach their objective. Well, what's interesting is that this mosque sits opposite a Chinese chippy. I've been down to the area and this Chinese chippy wasn't even touched. None of the windows were smashed. So, isn't it incredibly strange how the racist thugs who are so far right and ultranationalist blah 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 didn't even touch a Chinese chippy that was right next to the mosque, Starmer? Especially since they were swarming around it and the police weren't protecting it, were they, Starmer? Yes, they did smash up another shop down the road to get beer and they knocked down walls to get bricks. but they didn't smash a single pane of glass in this Chinese chippy. That's very strange, isn't it, Starmer? You'd think that these super racists would attack the Chinese too, but apparently not, Starmer. And it's funny how the state-funded media completely ignored this one, didn't they, Starmer? So, mein Führer, let's drop the race game, shall we? You and your comrades, your Volksgenossen, made it about the race when in fact it's about the government failing to protect the children from the criminals who wish to destroy us. These illegals are coming across the channel despite the people voting time and time again for the state to curb immigration. Worse, the state is also refusing to deal with these criminals. It is a fact that the Labour Party was in power in all the places that the little girls were being arred across this country for decades by multiple men. And in every single instance it was the Labour Party that turned a blind eye, because the Labour Party and the state as a whole is full of racist bigots who judge people by the colour of their skin. Let's look at these pictures, Starmer. I'm a concerned father, hashtag not far right, and I'm a concerned mother, hashtag not far right. Are mothers and fathers far right now, Mr. Starcy? Let's check Twitter, shall we, Mr. Starmer? You vile POS. Do something, or it's only going to get worse. The British public have had enough. But you're not listening, are you, Starmer? So instead of a new police division to combat knife crime, he creates a new police division to tackle people protesting about knife crime. Listen to what this woman in Hull says. Oh, and is this black guy a far-right racist, Starmer?
Across Europe, an increase in crime. In Ireland, it's a 50% increase in murder. In Sweden, 58% increase in sexual assaults and rapes by non-Swedish men. In Germany, a 92% increase in serious crime of newly arrived migrants. What we do need are some true statistics on crime, but nationality, not of the victims, but of the perpetrators. Did you know that 90% of these unvetted migrant men? Albania. Have you seen Albania lately? There are adverts and holiday brochures advertising holidays to Albania, and apparently you can get a return flight from Tirana, the capital, for only 28 quid. So why are all these Albanian men choosing to come and live in the UK, crossing a treacherous stretch of water when they can get such a cheap flight? And did you know that we have a company called Serco to thank, who are responsible for the invasion of Britain? They are facilitating, providing over 400 hotels around the country, but also the transporting of all these unvetted migrant men to all the towns and cities nationwide. Let's face it, after such a long, sometimes dangerous crossing on a dinghy, they're hardly going to walk to all their destinations, are they? Did anyone actually take time to consider how they actually get to all these various hotels? Did you know that when they arrive at their hotel, they're provided with the best halal food, the best medical care, and even given an allowance to live on? What about the people of the UK, who are unable to get doctors and hospital appointments? What about our young people starting out in life who are unable to get a home of their own? What about our elderly, now having their winter fuel taken away while these migrants keep warm in their hotels? This is all being funded out of our taxpayers' money. This mass immigration needs to stop. Our young people are being sacrificed to allow these undocumented strangers into our country. We do not know their intentions. Their